Welcome to Popok Live on the Midas Touch Network. I am Michael Popok. I'm taking questions. I'm giving answers. I don't take any prisoners and I don't pull any punches. You're on Popok Live. There should be a counter for how many lawsuits Donald Trump is going to have filed against his administration and people in his government during the next 4 years. We're a day and a half in. We've got 6 lawsuits already filed. You know I'm going to cover them here on Popok Live. We got 2 lawsuits filed in federal court against his executive order trying to end birthright citizenship, a constitutional right enshrined in the 14th Amendment by executive order. If you're scrunching up your nose thinking, how can a president through executive order end a constitutionally protected right? He can't. And that's what the 2 lawsuits are going to prove in their 2 separate venues. How about that Department of Government efficiency? Well, in the middle of the night, I don't know if you noticed, Donald Trump just changed the very purpose of the Department of Government efficiency. Maybe that's why Vivek Ramaswamy headed for the exit even before the administration started in order to run for the governor of Ohio, leaving Elon Musk the sole run of the House related to DOGE. Now, all Donald Trump did was take a big Sharpie pen, cross out the Office of Digital Affairs, and made it the Office of DOGE Service. Now its focus is not on cutting $3 trillion, but on trying to make the government more efficient when it comes to technology. What is going on? 3 new lawsuits against the Department of Government Affairs would like to know. Then we've got the Schedule F lawsuit. Yes. Now's your time to grab a big tub of popcorn and your favorite libation. Schedule F is what Donald Trump wants to use to try to eliminate civil servants. He wants to classify hundreds of thousands of civil servants in the government as political appointees in order to get rid of them. And there's a new lawsuit to try to stop him from doing that. Then I'm going to talk about what else. Something that our only felon president could ever do, which is issue 1,600 pardons to felons, including those that attacked, maimed, beat, tried to kill, and did successfully take the life of law enforcement, with 1,600 pardons for Jan 6 criminal defendants, including the most violent, including waving a magic wand and commuting the sentence of over 100 years for the leaders of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, who were convicted by juries and judges doing their civic duty in a public justice system of seditious conspiracy, which I need to remind our felon-in-chief that means that they were found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of trying to overthrow through violent means our government. Pardoned. Tale of 2 pardons, right? Joe Biden's pardons of the Jan 6 committee versus the 1,600 Jan 6 defendants who literally have been set free. Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, who was convicted and sentenced to 22 years, he's already celebrating in Miami. Then I want to talk about this bishop who in the National Cathedral today, Bishop Budd, decided properly to use her bully pulpit to go after Donald Trump and ask him to use his mercy not to discriminate against the LGBTQ plus community, against immigrants, against other people that he, as the president of the United States, should protect, not discriminate against, not criminalize. And we'll talk about how that particular sermon in the National Cathedral went today with Donald Trump, Melania, J.D. Vance, and his wife Usha in the first row, all staring down at their shoes. They should have known better. She took on Donald Trump in 2020 when he walked across and had the military clear the grounds of the White House so he could walk over to a church off Lafayette Park with an upside-down Bible. She didn't like that either. He should have known that if she was going to be presiding over that sermon, that he was going to have to sit there and take it, which happened. I don't think he can fire her, but I'm going to make the broader point. It is the church leaders, the temple leaders, synagogue leaders, mosque leaders who, during the civil rights movement, led this country to justice. Same thing's going to happen here. It's going to have to be a combination of the public interest groups I'm going to talk about during the lawsuit section of Popok Live, combined with church leaders, religious figures, and the rest, this audience, the Midas Touch Network, and the rest. We got to join together now, right? Donald Trump is drunk with power, issuing all sorts of crazy couple of hundred executive orders. It'll take me weeks just to do hot takes to catch you up on all of them and their implications. But I'm going to talk about them now, including one in which Donald Trump has completely bent over to allow people that donated huge money to him to profit with his new executive order allowing private prison systems to be used by the Department of Justice. That's something that Joe Biden got rid of in his first days in office. And who's going to benefit? Two major companies who were huge donors to Donald Trump. They wanted this. They bought Donald Trump, and he paid it back today with an executive order, which now allows private prisons to be used by the Department of Justice. And then we're going to touch on this bombshell report just came out before I started recording Popok Live about Pete Hegseth, the Department of Defense nominee, whose ex-sister-in-law submitted an affidavit under oath through Jack Reed, that's the ranking Democrat on the Armed Services Committee, saying that her sister, who was married at the time to Pete Hegseth, feared for her life during most of that marriage, that she had a safe word that she would use with the sister-in-law if he was beating her, that she had to hide in a closet in order to avoid being beaten, that she observed Hegseth, even in military uniform, being drunk and abusive. And the reason she said she turned it over is because Jack Reed told her that this is what he needed in order to get a few on-the-fence Republicans not to support Pete Hegseth, who is wholly unqualified and unfit to run the Pentagon. We'll continue to follow it all right here on Popok Live. Thank you for being here. This audience is just blossoming before my very eyes, and I'm humbled by it. We're averaging about 500,000 views a week. We get about 10 to 20,000 in the chat. I'm getting a lot of connectivity with our audience through my Blue Sky account at MS Popok, where you can leave questions and I'll give answers. It's really just heartwarming. We stand on the shoulders of the Midas Touch Network, on the Legal AF podcast, of all the work that I've been doing over the last 2.5 years. And now you know, and if you don't know, I'm going to tell you, I'm full-time. I'm full-time ever since the election. I made the decision with my family to go full-time working with the Midas Touch Network, working on the Legal AF YouTube channel, working on hot takes, working on new podcasts like this Popok Live. And I can't think of a better calling. It really is a calling to do. I got another huge announcement. It's going to be about 2 weeks away, where I'm going to be doing something in collaboration with Legal AF, the Midas Touch Network, and another organization that's going to be dedicated to seeking justice for those in our audience. That's a teaser. I'm not ready yet. Another 2 weeks. It's in the works. Trust me, I'm working night and day on this project, and hopefully you're gonna love it and love my our focus on our audience on this one and helping them obtain the justice that they deserve. Let's dive in. We got a counter, right? We got a counter going here. 6 lawsuits. Let's start with birthright citizenship. The Constitution guarantees after our Civil War that all people born here on U.S. soil, regardless of their parentage, regardless of their parents, are automatically U.S. citizens. We call it jus soil, right? It's Latin, French for you're born here, you're American citizen. That's been enshrined in the Constitution since the 1860s. We had a Supreme Court case 30 years later in 1898, and it's never wavered, in which the Supreme Court said if you're born here, regardless of if your parents are subject to the jurisdiction of and the laws of another country, like China in the case of the Supreme Court case, you are a U.S. citizen. Now, MAGA likes to call them anchor babies. They're not anchor babies. They're fellow U.S. citizens. And one of them may be the next United States president. Hell, there's people in Donald Trump's potential cabinet that are technically anchor babies who were born here by parents who were, marginally documented. And so the 14th Amendment, Section 1, the only piece of stray language in there that MAGA relies on is that it says if you're the subject to the laws or the jurisdiction of another country or foreign country. That's been interpreted to mean if you're the child of a foreign diplomat. Like if you're the child of the ambassador to France who happens to be living in New York and you're born here, you're not a U.S. citizen because they're on diplomatic soil, so to speak. Other than that, doesn't matter who your parents are. Donald Trump signs an executive order to have all government offices, all government agencies declare that they will not recognize the U.S. citizenship for benefits, for status, for anything else if the baby's mother is either undocumented or here temporarily, but not illegally. So she's either illegal, undocumented, or here only temporarily on some sort of asylum status. And the father's not a U.S. citizen, naturalized or otherwise. That is not how the 14th Amendment, Section 1 works or how it's been interpreted. That is a gift that we give to anyone who was born here. You are automatically a U.S. citizen and don't have to fear to be deported or sent back to some other country because this is your country. And to answer the question, can Donald Trump, by executive order, alter a constitutional amendment? And let me answer that question. The answer is no. Just picture it like rock, paper, scissors. Right? Rock is the constitutional amendment, 14th Amendment. Scissor is the executive branch, and you know from the playground what happens there. The only way to amend or change that law, the only way is if there is an amendment to the Constitution, 2/3 vote of the states, 2/3 approval by the House and the Senate. And we know in this divided country of ours, we're not getting 2/3 of people to agree on anything. Or you get a Supreme Court to interpret it your way if you're MAGA. Now, the Supreme Court already doesn't like when executive orders, which seems to be how Donald Trump is going to run his administration, because he doesn't believe that MAGA Congress can get any laws passed, which he's right about. So as I said before, after the election, he's going to try to govern by executive order, which is great for us, fair-minded, fair-thinking Democrats, because that's going to lead to him abuse of power, doing things that he's not authorized to do, doing things inconsistent with congressional law, doing things inconsistent with constitutional law, lawsuit, 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 lawsuit. As I said at the top of Popok Live today, 6 lawsuits already filed. Multiply the number of, let's see, we had 1,000 lawsuits or so that were filed in the first Trump administration. It'll be 3,000 now, guaranteed. So, the Supreme Court has a doctrine we call the major questions doctrine. They don't like executive orders on really big issues that should be resolved by the Constitution or by Congress. And they're not going to support, under the major questions doctrine, having Donald Trump with a flick of his pen and some word processor to change birthright citizenship under his 14th Amendment. That's not happening. This is dead on arrival. I'm going to talk about the couple of lawsuits here. This is dead on arrival. This was to pander to MAGA and then have the courts reject it and then have Donald Trump complain about it. That's what we're watching. And so whether it's under major questions or other, I don't see the United States Supreme Court supporting Donald Trump on this issue. I just don't. Now, look, I know. Where have I heard of a Supreme Court misinterpreting the 14th Amendment to benefit Donald Trump? Oh, right. The Colorado insurrectionist ballot case and 14th Amendment Section 3. Could they go that route again? But that was to benefit Donald Trump and get him reelected. But there's no other way around that analysis. And that was that. And a lot, that was like a 9-0 vote. Here, this is a completely different case. This is John Roberts, the Chief Justice, having to be part of his legacy, not only ripping away a constitutional right for a woman to choose under Roe versus Wade, but he's going to deny birthright citizenship in the 14th Amendment and overturn an over 124-year precedent. I don't think so. And I don't think Amy Coney Barrett, the mother of, I think she's got 8 children, I don't think she's going to go along with this either. And the reason I mention her is not because I love Amy Coney Barrett. I mostly don't. But she is the swing vote. It's becoming the Amy Coney Barrett court. Because she's the swing vote, voting with the majority more than the others. We can't count on Gorsuch. He's gone. He's gone. He's with Alito and Thomas on almost everything. Kavanaugh's a free radical. You don't know where he's going to go. Roberts is worried about his legacy because, he wrote the immunity decision. He wrote the Colorado ballot initiative decision. He didn't take Alito off the writing of the opinion for the Dobbs decision on Roe versus Wade. It's his court. I see easily Roberts, Amy Coney Barrett siding with the Democratic majority of the Democratic wing of the Supreme Court and shooting this all down. Now, the lawsuits have been filed. There's two separate ones. In New Hampshire federal court. Now, remember, before I get to the courts, the venues are important here. The courts are important here. The appellate courts are important here. Just as the Republicans in MAGA want to do their Texas two-step all the time. File in Texas, take it to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, then take it to the United States Supreme Court. We, as fair-minded Democrats and progressives, we got to do our own version. That would mean the First Circuit Court of Appeals, which covers New Hampshire and Massachusetts. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals, which covers New York and Connecticut. The Third Circuit Court of Appeals, which covers New Jersey and the like, right? And the DC Court of Appeals. That's where we have to live. California and the Ninth Circuit used to be very reliable. It's getting a little bit less reliable, but I would throw that still in there too in California. Right? Stay away from the Midwest, stay away from the South, stay away from the Fifth Circuit, right? And that's where these lawsuits need to go, and that's where they're going. First case filed against Birthright Citizenship Executive Order hours after it was signed is in New Hampshire. It's brought fundamentally by the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. I said earlier in November, watch the ACLU. Watch new organizations made, including ones by Norm Eisen, who's a friend of the pod and a friend of the channel, to defend democracy. He's formed some groups there. The NAACP. So the NAACP, the ACLU, a group by Norm Eisen, and then some other groups like LULAC, the Latin Urban Cities Organization, and an Indonesian community support group. Because the Indonesians came to New Hampshire, right, in 2023, and they're having babies. I mean, I don't believe in sterilizing people who just arrived here, right? And so they're having babies. The question is, why aren't those babies Americans? Why are they second-class citizens? Donald Trump says, well, they're here on a temporary asylum visa, so we're not going to recognize their children. Where does it say that in the Constitution? So that group mobilized behind the Indonesian community, but they're seeking, just as the other lawsuit I'll tell you about, they're seeking a full block, nationwide block of this order. Now, Trump put a 30-day timer in it. His law doesn't go into effect for about 30 days. So we got some time for this litigation. He anticipated it. So that's the New Hampshire case. Under the 14th Amendment violation, under some other laws, asking the court to block it and declare it's unconstitutional. Now, 22 other states have gotten together and split their suits into two separate suits. So really, there's really 7 suits that have now been filed against Donald Trump. The 22 or so states have joined together. 18 states and 2 cities, San Francisco and DC, are in one case. In Massachusetts, again, same, the First Circuit Court of Appeals, same as New Hampshire. So we've got 2 cases sitting in the First Circuit. 18 states there, including Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Michigan, Maine, Minnesota, Vermont, Maryland. They're all joined together there. And then in another case in the Western District of Washington State, federal, all federal, just to be clear. These are not state issues. Constitution, subject matter jurisdiction, federal court. In Washington, which reports to the Ninth Circuit, we've got Arizona, Washington, Illinois, and Oregon filing there. Same case, but they're flooding the zone. This is the portfolio method of filing. I've handled class action cases where we filed in 9 different jurisdictions at the same time. I get it. Ninth Circuit here. 2 cases at the First Circuit. The 2 that I've talked about. The ACLU case, I'll call it, and the other one involving the other 22 states. Massachusetts, 1 in Washington, Ninth Circuit, First Circuit. This is going to go quick. We're going to go really quick on this. Briefing emergency temporary injunctions probably within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Emergency appeals to the 1st and the 9th. Maybe we get the same ruling. Maybe we get a split decision and an emergency application to the United States Supreme Court. In the 1st and the 9th, they are the first justice on the top of each of those circuits from the United States Supreme Court is the Democratic wing of the court. You see where this is going? It's the Sotomayors, the Ketanji Brown Jacksons, the Kagans, and the like, right? They cover 1st and 9th, yeah? And then United States Supreme Court. And then when you get there, let's say in the next 2 months, you got to aim for Amy Coney Barrett, the mother of 8 children. Yeah, constitutional scholar, allegedly from Notre Dame University, and get her along with Roberts to side with Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor and kill it now. And then we have to use the fact that he signed this executive order as a community against him, MAGA, those that support him in the midterm elections. We have to see these executive orders as gifts. You know, yes, there's human trauma that goes along with it, but they're gifts because we can use them politically and legally against Donald Trump and tie his administration up at knots and make him the lamest of lame duck presidents before the midterm elections, right? Those are the two, really 3 birthright citizenship cases. Let me move on for a moment. When we come back from one of our sponsors, we got to do that part. Pro-democracy sponsors are important. Remember, we're completely independent here. We're people-powered, Legal AF for power, Popok-powered. I like Popok-powered tonight. No outside investors, right? No, none, right? This is my equipment. This is my time. This is my investment with you and yours too, back to us. That's how we get this thing. Hit the subscribe button. Go on to the new Legal AF YouTube channel. We need your help. This is the break glass emergency moment that we built that channel for, 2 months before the election. I'm there curating it. I got Dina Dahl, Shan Wu, Court Accountability Action, Karen Free McNiffalo, me. We got some amazing videos, 5-6 videos a day. A new show called Unprecedented about the United States Supreme Court. Legal AF, hit that subscribe button. And then we got patreon.com/legalaf as well, where I'm doing work there as well. So when I come back from commercial break, we're going to talk about the DOGE lawsuits and the phoniness of DOGE and how Donald Trump did a switch in the middle of the night, like a last-minute switch to undermine his campaign promises, and nobody's following, but I'm going to talk about it here. Then I'm going to talk about the Schedule F lawsuit to try to hollow out our civil servants and how that's going. With a new lawsuit there. That's lawsuit number 7, if we're doing the counter. 1,600 pardons of criminals. Of course, only a criminal in chief could do that. I'm going to break down what happened there and the attack on our law enforcement and what message it sends to future people that want to attack our Capitol and be bailed out. Then I want to talk about Donald Trump reversing a Joe Biden executive order to allow for private prisons to be used by the Department of Justice in order to pay back 2 major donors of his, one at a company called Geo Group and the other one at Core Civic. And then finally, Donald Trump loved this moment when Bishop Budd in the National Cathedral today in front of the families and Donald Trump told him, but also lectured him and chastised him. I almost said crucified, but that would not have been the right word at the minute. She's Episcopalian. That telling him to show mercy to those that pick our fruit, that manufacture our products, who build our homes, who are immigrants, who are not all criminals, to the LGBTQ plus and transgender community. Somebody's been reading all the executive orders, and Bishop Budd has certainly been doing that. Donald Trump didn't like that very much, but I didn't like hearing about Pete Hegseth being a misogynist and being accused of physically abusing and mentally torturing one of his wives. That came out with a new bombshell sworn statement or affidavit from his ex-sister-in-law delivered through Jack Reed on the Armed Services Committee to the voting members of the committee. It's not over yet, folks. We can still make sure that the world knows and the committee knows and the Senate knows that if they confirm this unfit, unqualified, misogynist of a candidate, we are going to make them pay and suffer at the midterm elections. So I'm going to follow that as well. But first, a word from our sponsors. When your car breaks down, you take it to a mechanic with no hesitation. You need it, and it's not something most guys can fix themselves. And men should think the exact same way about ED. But the reality is you might be hesitant to seek help. Thankfully, through HIMS, you can get access to personalized ED treatment without stepping outside your door. HIMS is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. HIMS provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMS can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/legalaf. That's HIMS.com/legalaf for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/legalaf. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plans. This episode of Legal AF is brought to you by Graza. Everyone knows I love food, and lately what's taken my food to that next level of flavor is Graza. Graza is my olive oil of choice. It's top-notch, extra virgin olive oil at an affordable everyday price. Graza is always fresh, never blended, and made from one kind of olive from one place. The Piquillol olive from Jaén, Spain, where over half the world's olive oil is produced. Graza has not one, but 2 olive oils that come in a super fun squeeze bottle for ridiculously easy sizzling, drizzling, and everything in between. Sizzle, their everyday cooking oil, can handle the heat with a smoke point of 410 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's great for baking, sautéing, and, well, anything you cook. They also have Drizzle, a super punchy, flavorful finishing oil that can be used to whip up a salad dressing, dip a baguette into, or even drizzle over your ice cream. It's seriously the best olive oil you'll ever taste. Look, I'm a big home cook, so quality olive oil is essential in my kitchen. First, I always have a giant bottle of olive oil right next to the stove for every occasion, and I love Spanish olive oil. The sizzle has been great for cooking, and I love the squeeze bottle format for easy cooking. I'd highly recommend it for any home chef who likes to cook with high quality and delicious tasting olive oil. Graza is just like what restaurant chefs use, plus what pours out is vibrant, super fresh, and aromatic in a way that supermarket olive oil, well, it isn't. Listeners to our show will get 10% off your first order of any olive oil on their site, but I wholeheartedly recommend the Graza Starter Kit. You'll receive 2 squeezy bottles of olive oil, sizzle for cooking, and drizzle for finishing with an extra kick of flavor. Plus, they'll include 2 refill cans. So if you run out of olive oil, there's no need to buy a new bottle. Graza makes it easy to be eco-friendly with their refill cans that are perfectly proportioned for your sizzle and drizzle squeeze bottles. You can also find their bottles and refill cans on shelves at a Whole Foods or Target near you. Both the Squeezy Duo and the refill can seal in freshness and block out light to maximize flavor and quality. So head to graza.co and use Legal AF to get 10% off your Graza Starter Kit and get to cooking your next chef-quality meal. And you're back on Popok Live. Let's dive into DOGE. Remember when DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, was supposed to be some sort of, red tape cutting, $1 trillion, cost cutting, government shrinking organization? It's not going to be that at all. In fact, in the middle of the night, Donald Trump made a switch that he lied to his voters about. He's now calling it officially through an executive order the United States DOGE service, because there already was an existing United States digital service. So he came up with this nonsense of a title to an order. I guess it already had like an apparatus and a structure. But the digital service was just about like how, digital integration among federal agencies. So he slipped DOGE in there, which looks like it's not going to be cutting costs. It's going to be working on technology and software management and modernization. That's what DOGE is going to do. What was I so worried about? Maybe that's why Elon Musk was all excited today when he took a website for one of the agencies offline, one of the departments offline. Oh, I pushed a button and there's no more department, DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office. Ha ha ha. Yeah, because that's all apparently Donald Trump is going to let him do. This is the incredible shrinking of Elon Musk. Elon Musk, who's worth $400 billion, thinks he's Donald Trump's equal. He's not. Donald, check the door. Check the money. The name of the place is the President of the United States, and Donald Trump is the occupant. He was never going to let Elon Musk wield a lot of power. It's like Elon Musk is in an office building next to the White House. He wants to get in the West Wing. Donald Trump said, no, we don't want Elon in the West Wing. And he went from he's going to be the cost cutter in chief, removing $3 trillion from the budget, getting rid of civil servants and dead wood, saving us money, to, oh, you run the digital platform. You modernize the servers and the cloud computing, won't you, Elon? And while you're at it, could you get me a Diet Coke? I'm pushing the button. I'm not making this up. Donald Trump reinstalled on the Resolute desk, the desk in the Oval Office, what he refers to and his staff refers to as the Diet Coke button. It is literally a button that when he pushes it, no, I know what you're picturing. You're picturing like a hamster and a giant bottle of Diet Coke comes down and he sucks off of it. No, although I would love that. It's a button that goes to some who knows who out in front of his office. It like lights up and he knows to go or she knows to go to run and get a Diet Coke. So maybe they'll modernize that through Elon Musk. This is the reason I now presume that Vivek Ramaswamy decided to leave before this DOGE became basically the digital service. And he then ran off and said, well, I'm double parked. Time for me to head off to try to run for the governor of Ohio. Good luck with that, by the way. So this is the incredible shrinking of DOGE, the incredible shrinking of Elon Musk before our very eyes, but not before 3 new lawsuits. 2 claiming that it violates the Federal Advisory Committee Act. But now, which is an act that requires, if you're going to be like a blue ribbon panel or an advisory committee, then you've got to have like representation on the panel. It has to be open to the public, has to be transparent. You got to file a charter with Congress. You got to keep minutes. Right. So I don't think that works now anymore because he signed the executive order to make it inside the government by changing the name, apparently, of the United States Digital Service to the United States DOGE Service, whatever that means. And then requiring, I thought it was supposed to save money. I didn't realize it was going to create more red tape. One of the first orders of the DOGE executive order is that every federal agency has to set up a 4-person DOGE team comprised of an IT person, a lawyer, an executive. I'm like, we're creating more bureaucracy? I thought we were getting rid of it. That was the purpose. But so I don't think the lawsuits now work, these 2 lawsuits that were just filed, again, in favorable venues for us, for the Democrats and the moderates. But there is an argument, a better argument, I believe, of an improper delegation of authority. You can't just create these sort of federal departments and federal agencies and have them funded without having Congress's approval. That's why he said, oh, there's a spigot of money coming through the digital service. We'll make it the DOGE service. And then but as soon as you try to expand its remit and its portfolio, you run afoul of the Administrative Procedures Act. You run afoul of separation of powers. That's the angle I think you got to take on these DOGE lawsuits. But for right now, I'm less scared of DOGE than I was yesterday. And I'm less scared of Elon Musk than I was yesterday because it looks like it's just going to be like modernizing the Coke button on the Resolute desk and other things like, we got to save money on cloud computing. Like, all right, we'll go talk to the billionaire oligarchs that were up on the dais during the inauguration. Why don't we do that? I'm not even talking about the inauguration on Popok Live. I refuse. I was watching Puppies and Cats like the rest of you and celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and I was watching the college national championship. I'm not going to talk about Melania looking like the Hamburglar, or she was presiding over a funeral for America. You know, it was mourning in America. I just didn't realize which mourning they were talking about. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about the apocalyptic, weird, crazy, to paraphrase George W. Bush, that was some weird shit, speech that Donald Trump gave. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about the Nazi salute given by Elon Musk. No, I refuse. Was J.D. Vance even there, by the way? And then finally, I'm not going to talk about the fact that Donald Trump couldn't figure out how to put his hand on the Bible, or was afraid that he was going to be terribly burned when he was being sworn in by John Roberts. Okay, I'm not talking about that. Let me move on to the DOGE lawsuit. So the two about whether it violates the federal advisory council or advisory commission act, and one about, all right, well, if you're a federal department, Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, public records request, transparent, give us, that's the other thing. If you're inside the government, you're subject to public records. I said this yesterday during a hot take, and that public records request has been filed. That's what we need to do. Whether it's Midas Touch, Legal AF, the new thing I'm working on, I'll talk about at the end of the month. We need to file these kind of Freedom of Information Act requests. That's what we got to do. As we keep Donald Trump honest at the intersection of law and politics. And I mean, that's the wrong phrase. We can't keep him honest. We just expose him so that we can go against him at the midterms and hold MAGA responsible. Let me move on to the Schedule F lawsuit. That sounds like the most boring, but I think that one is one of the most interesting. In that one, there are 37. There's a union that represents 37 agencies and their employees who filed a lawsuit about the executive order to implement Schedule F, or to reinstate Schedule F, which is Donald Trump's attempt to try to classify people not as civil servants who can't lose their job, but as political hires, through a bit of alchemy. And they don't like that. And so they're filing a lawsuit. They filed it in the D.C. Circuit, the D.C. trial court, D.C. Circuit Court. And that's the right place to put it, because that goes up to the D.C. Court of Appeals. And again, right court, right venue, right appellate court on the way to the United States Supreme Court. I think they have a winning argument on Schedule F as well. That would be, if you're following at home, you're playing the Trump lawsuit home game, that's case number 7 against him. And we're less than 2 days into his administration. Now let me turn to pardons. Pardon me, I'm turning to pardons. You know, Joe Biden got a lot of flack for some of his pardons. Oh, it stained it indelibly stained his legacy because he pardoned his son. Are you kidding me? He pardoned his family. Once Donald Trump went into, I'm going to weaponize the Department of Justice, I'm going to use Kash Patel, FBI, and Pam Bondi, Department of Justice, to go after my enemies. I mean, what choice was left for Joe Biden? We would have thought he was senile if he hadn't entered into all of those pardons. Like, what father would leave his son to the clutches of his arch enemy and crazed anti-law and order President Trump? Nobody. And the fact that he did the same thing for the Biden crime family, another word for his brothers and sister-in-laws, that's a reflection of Trump. If Trump wasn't following Biden, if a Carter or an Obama or a Clinton was following, he wouldn't have to pardon these people. But when Donald Trump makes threats to go after Liz Cheney, Benny Thompson, all of the Jan 6 committee, the prosecutors and the like, he needs to put them under a protective pardon, protective shield. So my problem with Joe Biden, frankly, was not too many pardons, including trying to right the wrong from back in the 80s of having people serve too long a sentence for crack cocaine versus powder cocaine, which fell disproportionately on the Black and brown community. I was fine with all that. And fine with commuting the sentences of death row people. That's where my humanity sort of lies, and give them life sentences without possibility of parole. My problem wasn't the amount of commutations and pardons for Joe Biden. He didn't do enough. As I've said before, I'll say it again. Jack Smith should have got a pardon, and his whole team. The FBI worked, anybody who worked against Donald Trump in a criminal or other setting needed to get a pardon. That's my view. Phony Willis, Fulton County DA, Letitia James, New York Attorney General. Judge Engoron presided over the $450 million fraud case. Judge Merchan, the 34 felony count conviction. Judge Chutkin, the DC election interference case. All of these people needed a pardon. Christopher Wray, FBI, but they didn't come. Gen 6 committee got them, Biden family, Hunter Biden, some other people. I thought there actually would be, I was actually surprised. I thought there'd be a lot more pardons at the end, even the last couple of days. I thought Michael Cohen earned and deserved a pardon. And I asked for it, I called for it, I had Michael on the show to talk about it, and it didn't happen. So now we switch gears. 1,600 pardons, which is about the number I said it was going to be. There's more to come, by the way. The first wave was the Jan 6ers. Even J.D. Vance said that his boss shouldn't pardon the most violent of the Jan 6th insurrectionists. The ones caught on video, the ones caught on audio, the ones who had their own social media posts about what they were doing. Like maybe they shouldn't be released from prison. The ones that beat, brain, maim, try to kill police, maybe they shouldn't. I mean, let me just as an example, I want to see if I can find this quick enough. Just an example. We know from the adversarial criminal justice system and the trials that happened, hundreds and hundreds of them, that these people were armed with firearms, with flagpoles, with fire extinguishers, with furniture, with baseball bats, with guns, with explosive devices. And they attacked over 150 of our law enforcement. Some of them, many of them, retired and took disability because they were so brutally attacked during this pitched battle, especially at the Western Terrace or inside the Capitol itself, right? We know that 2 law enforcement died. 2 took their own life. That's how bad things were. Brian Sicknick died the day after from having been pepper sprayed and had a heart attack at the ripe old age of 40-something. Others were crushed in the door. They had their own equipment used against them and to be beaten. Even J.D. Vance said we shouldn't let them out until he was mercilessly attacked by MAGA and then he walked it back. Yeah, most of America thinks that these people shouldn't be pardoned. That Donald Trump shouldn't do that. I think it's something like 60% or more thinks Donald Trump should not have done that. That means we have to make him pay politically. He used scarce political capital to do this because he made that promise. They're already out. Enrique Tarrio, 22 years for seditious conspiracy. Let me remind Donald Trump what seditious conspiracy is. It's advocating the violent overthrow of our government. They were convicted of that beyond a reasonable doubt in front of a jury or a judge, or they pled guilty to it. He also commuted the sentences of all of the leadership of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. Stuart Rhodes, the eye patch guy, out. Gonna be out. Directed his new head of the Department of Justice to immediately process all of these pardons. He didn't even have he was too lazy to even write all their names out. He just listed 7 or 8 that he was going to commute their sentence, shorten their sentence, and wipe away 100 years of sentencing. And the rest, he left to his Department of Justice and his Bureau of Prisons to figure it out. But Enrique Tarrio somehow is out. Somebody opened this jail cell. So Donald Trump has opened the jail cells and released hardened criminals and people who beat and maimed police. Think about that the next time you're voting for MAGA. Next time you're voting for the GOP or anything related to Donald Trump. I'm talking to you, law enforcement, people around law enforcement. You think he supports you? He doesn't. He doesn't. I see law enforcement and blue get together at funerals and support each other. Did Donald Trump just have your back when he let out people who violently attacked the police, just doing their job, protecting democracy? I don't think so. So, you got that going on. I mean, it's something that only a person who's the first felon to ever occupy the Oval Office could pull off. But again, it's not just about reporting here on Popok Live. It's about encouraging and energizing our community to do something about it. 9 million Democrats stayed home and sat out democracy on November 5th. 20 million registered voters didn't vote. I know everyone's all, check the ballots and there's voter fraud and they flipped votes and all. Forget all that. We lost 9 million votes. The people didn't show up. 20 million people said, I'll sit out democracy. And we need those people back. We could always count on Democratic enthusiasm. We could always count on Democratic turnout. We could always count on Democratic mail-in ballots. We could always count at Democrats the midterm and independents that join with Democrats and progressives. Not this time. We got to reclaim it. And this type of analysis and this type of community building here on Popok Live, on Legal AF, on the Midas Touch Network gets us there. Yeah? So let's continue. That's the pardon process. Let's move on to prisons. In fact, before I get to prisons and talk about how Donald Trump has benefited his benefactors who donated a lot of money to them by reinstating something that Joe Biden got rid of 4 years ago. When Joe Biden took office, there were 14,000 prisoners sitting in private jails, and he took those 14,000 and had them returned to the Bureau of Prisons, and he canceled those contracts. Now, that's different from the immigration detention centers that are being operated privately. The federal marshals have contracts with private detention centers. This relates to, convicted federal criminals ending up in private jails, which is a bad thing, a bad look for our country. I'll talk to you about that more. And then I want to talk about Bishop Budd versus Donald Trump today in the National Cathedral and why it matters, and new information about Pete Hegseth and the bombshell affidavit that came out about his sexual abuse and violent abuse of one of his wives. But first, another word from our sponsors. Did you know the liver is the second largest organ in your body? It's responsible for over 500 functions. But for some reason, liver health doesn't always get the attention it deserves. Over 30% of Americans have a sluggish liver, a problem that often goes undetected until the very last minute. DOGE is on a mission to educate us all on why it's so important to maintain your liver health, and has created an incredible product to help you do just that. I found a clinically supported, potent, and effective solution, and I can't wait to share it with you. Dose for Your Liver was formulated to cleanse your liver of unwanted elements, aid digestion. It acts as your body's filter, flushing out unwanted elements and breaking down what you consume into essential nutrients. The liver produces and regulates cholesterol, stores vitamins and minerals, and impacts digestive and metabolic health, among many other things. DOGE's science-backed formula promotes liver function, aids digestion, eases bloating, and even boosts energy levels. In a double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial, Dose for Your Liver lowered liver enzyme levels by 50% in over 86% of participants. Stick with Dose and feel the incredible benefits over time. More energy, better digestion, reduced bloating, healthier liver enzyme function, reduction in brain fog, and better sleep. One Dose for Your Liver shot is equivalent to 17 shots of turmeric juice. Dose is gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and vegan. Save 30% on your first month of subscription by going to dosedaily.co/legalaf or entering legalaf at checkout. That's dosedaily.co/legalaf for 30% off your first month subscription. When I married my wife, I got a fantastic cat in my life as her plus one, Chanel, an amazing tortie that I can't get enough of. Our cat is part of our family, plain and simple. So I want her to have the best food money can buy. I didn't realize for years that the cat food we were buying had questionable ingredients. This podcast is sponsored by Smalls. If you're a listener of this show, you know that my cat can't live without Smalls. To get 50% off your first order plus free shipping, head to smalls.com and use our promo code LegalAF. Smalls cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients you'd find in your fridge and it's delivered right to your door. That's why cats.com named Smalls their best overall cat food. My cat Chanel prefers Smalls way more than her previous cat food. I legitimately did a taste test. No, not me, but with the cat. I put 2 bowls side by side, and she immediately went to Smalls. Since making the switch to Smalls, Chanel has had fewer hairballs, more balanced energy, a healthier weight, a softer and shinier fur coat, and a less stinky litter box. Still not a believer in Smalls? Well, New York Magazine called Smalls the best cat food according to veterinarians, while BuzzFeed said, my cats went completely ballistic for this stuff. Now that we feed her Smalls, even Chanel's breath is much better, and her fur is much softer ever since I switched to Smalls. After switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. Look, that's a big deal. And the team at Smalls is so confident your cat will love their product that you can try it risk-free. That means they will refund you if your cat won't eat their food. What are you waiting for? Give your cat the food they deserve. Head to smalls.com and use promo code LegalAF at checkout for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. That's the best offer you'll find, but you have to use my code LegalAF for 50% off your first order. One last time, that's promo code LegalAF for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. Welcome back to Popok Live. One of the dirty secrets of our justice system is that before Joe Biden, we were using private prison companies that turn a profit, have shareholders and stakeholders. That's an unholy alliance between our justice system, which is supposed to be colorblind, so to speak, and justice is blind, with a for-profit component of it. Didn't sit well with the Democrats, didn't sit well with Joe Biden. He got rid of it with an executive order and brought in 14,000 people back into the Bureau of Prisons. There's 2 major donors to Donald Trump, one called the GEO Group, one called Core Civic, that donated tons of money to Donald Trump and couldn't wait for an executive order by him, which has already happened, which now allows the Department of Justice, now allowed by Pam Bondi, to use private jails. Just to give you an idea, they were already making tons of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars a year from contracts with other aspects of our government. For instance, the GEO Group gets 41% of its revenue from its relationship with immigration detention centers. Core Civic gets 30% of its revenue from immigration detention centers and 21% from the Federal Marshal Service. This is big business, folks. And it's unsavory to have people coming out of our criminal justice system be taken away by capitalists, so to speak, in private jail systems. And so we now have the reporting that Donald Trump has ended it and has now allowed his Department of Justice to enter these contracts. You can hear the champagne bottles popping at GEO Group and Core Civic. Now, look, there's immigration detention centers that are operated by them. I got a whole different approach to immigration and the deportation rates that have apparently been put off because Donald Trump kept talking about them so much that the element of surprise was ruined. Why don't we stop with detention centers and why don't we launch a new Ellis Island project, just like my grandparents came through? And why don't we have immigration processing centers and bring on, instead of putting them in cages, instead of trying to fight whether a baby has birthright citizenship or not, or should be separated from their parents and put in a cage, why don't we have and use our resources to have a dignified immigration policy and have a Ellis Island style project? When my grandparents came through Ellis Island, that was an immigration and naturalization processing center. You know, we shorthanded as Ellis Island. They came off the boat. They were processed. I don't know if it was green card or whatever they called it back then when my group came in the early 1900s, but they left documented, to use the term of the day, on their way to citizenship. There's no greater citizens and patriots than my grandparents. You know, there's no greater citizen or patriot than my wife, who had the fortune to win the green card lottery. Literally, yes, people do win that. You know, she did not intend to come to this country originally. She was on her way to Italy. I never would have met her. I'm glad that she didn't do that. But she applied for green card citizenship. She got it. She got her green card several months later. She got her citizenship 5 years after that. And my wife cries at the national anthem, our national anthem. There's no bigger patriot that we've created than through a dignified immigration process. Give us an Ellis Island immigration and naturalization center, not a detention center, run by private entities. That's what I'm calling for here on Popok Live. So let me move on to our final two stories today on the show. Some of you may have already seen it. I got a hot take up already on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. It's the courage and character and leadership of somebody like Bishop Marjorie Edgar Budd, who gave a sermon for the ages today. I mean, talk about courage. Talk about truth to power. This was a lecture to power. While she had a prone Donald Trump, Melania, J.D. Vance, and Usha Vance in front of her, she decided to use her moment to oppose Donald Trump's worst instincts and to beg him for mercy on behalf of the underprivileged, to beg him for mercy for the transgender community, for the LGBTQ plus community, for immigrants. And she called him out in about a 10-minute sermon. Donald Trump didn't like it. He said that was not we could have done better. That wasn't very exciting. He exchanged nervous glances with J.D. Vance, wordless comments. Melania just stared straight ahead. Usha just stared straight ahead. She is the daughter of immigrants. We know Donald Trump's policies about the transgender community just in the last 2 days. In the last day, he's issued 2 executive orders. One, to have the United States government only recognize 2 genders, male and female. The other, to eliminate from Title IX protection at our universities and our higher education places, transgender protections. We know where he's at, but it's for our clergy. It's for our spiritual leaders, wherever they may reside. You know, yes, Donald Trump should have known better when he saw that Budd was going to be the bishop for today. I mean, Budd challenged him already in 2020 when he used the church for a political prop, when he was going during Black Lives Matter to go from the back door of the White House through Lafayette Park to get to a church, I think an Episcopal church, right there with an upside down Bible, using the military inappropriately to clear the way. She hated that. She took him on. She did a video about it. She said it was inappropriate. It was disgusting. It was a sacrilege, and it should never happen again. So she's a progressive Episcopalian bishop. What did he think was going to happen? You know, and I don't think he can remove her. To answer the question in one of my chat in my Blue Sky at MS Popok, I don't think he can remove her from the National Cathedral. Okay, it's not technically a part of the executive branch, and we are going to need in these times the clergy to step forward, along with secular leaders and the leadership here on Midas Touch and Legal AF and my own and my law firms and all. We're going to need in this community to step forward, not back, just like in the civil rights movement. The reason the civil rights movement, think about who led the civil rights movement. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., right? And others that held clergy titles, Jesse Jackson, and the list goes on. In the pulpits, on Sunday sermons, in black churches, in white churches, in synagogues, and in mosques, and in other temples of faith. They led during the civil rights, talked about it every Sunday, every Saturday, every Friday, whatever your day is. We need to return to that, because they're going to need to join and link arms with us as we cross our bridge on the other side of Donald Trump and hold him accountable. The lawyers, I assure you, whether it's the lawyers around Midas Touch and Legal AF, the Norm Isons of the world, and the rest, the public interest groups that we support, like the American Civil Liberties Union, the NAACP, the Southern Poverty Clinic, other organizations just formed in order to protect democracy, the Court Accountability Action. The lawyers know which courts to put it in, which judges to aim for, which circuit courts to aim for, and how to get to the United States Supreme Court. And they're learning now on the fly on how to shape their arguments before the United States Supreme Court and that bench at the lectern to aim to try to get Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts more more often than not on things that matter. So I believe in the federal court system. I know people have they hold it in low regard, understandably so, and they criticize it, understandably so, because of how it was operated under the Department of Justice at Merrick Garland and in the Trump criminal cases. But I have not lost my faith in our civil court system, our federal court system, about constitutional issues. Not quite yet. So that's going to happen. And what is our role here? Our role here is to come here to be nourished by our community, to be nourished by our linking arms with people that we can trust on both sides of the glass here, both sides of the microphone. I trust, love, and respect my audience. My audience, I can only hope, do the same towards me and to the Midas Touch contributors. That's all I can ask for. That gets me up in the morning. That gets me motivated like nothing else. And, I've got my own world, right? I got my own Popok world. I got a beautiful wife. I got a beautiful daughter. I've got them to protect, promote, encourage, cultivate, help them achieve their highest ideals as human beings and as women. That's my role. That's why I was put on this planet. But here we can get together on the Midas Touch Network and on Popok Live every week. And we can not just commiserate. I don't want to commiserate. I want to lean forward, not back. All right? I want to oppose actively, aggressively. And I'm going to show you the ways to do it. I'm going to tell you how the Democrats and progressives can use this information to their advantage to send Donald Trump and everyone around him to a crushing defeat at the midterms. Right? We're 2 days into the administration. That means there's 2 days left on the clock. Right? And that's how we have to treat it. That's why I'm glad you're here on Popok Live. Let's touch on the final story for today. No surprise. We knew that Pete Hegseth, there have been rumors about sexual abuse, misogyny, about infidelity in his marriage for a long, long time. We knew about an allegation of rape in Washington that he settled with a non-disclosure agreement. We know he's represented by a Trumper in Tim Parlatore, a lawyer. We know that they've been trying to keep away from the Senate all of the women who would come out against Pete Hegseth, all the ones that, as alleged, saw him drunk, sometimes in uniform, publicly intoxicated, calling about killing Muslims. These are the allegations. We know that there were going to be people that were going to, as the New York Times did and other reporting did, who were going to testify, hopefully, about his mismanagement of 2 veterans organizations and how he's run out on a rail related to that. Yeah. And now we've got, finally, the dam is broken. We finally have the ex-sister-in-law. It's always the ex-sister-in-law, by the way. The ex-sister-in-law came forward and said when he was married 3 times. He cheated on 2 of the wives to get to the 3rd. That his Danielle Dietrich Hegseth, that the sister had a safe word, a code word with her sister, the one that submitted the affidavit to Jack Reed on the Armed Services Committee for the Democrats, when she was being abused, to make sure that she wasn't killed. And she also testified in the sworn affidavit that her sister had to hide in the closet from a violent Pete Hegseth, that she observed him in uniform being publicly intoxicated, being violent. This is all laid out. Now, the question is, can Jack Reed, now having obtained it from somebody who was not that willing to give it, is he going to be able to use that to get some of these Republicans off the fence and vote against Pete Hegseth, who is wholly unqualified and unfit for the office to be the chairman to be the Secretary of Defense? Yeah. So we got to start working hard to take down some of these cabinet nominees. Pam Bondi looks like she's going to slide through. Oh, one note about Pam Bondi: she made over $1 million lobbying on behalf of those private prisons entities that I told you about earlier. So I don't know about draining the swamp, but that's how Pam Bondi made her money. So look, she's going to get through. The Treasury Secretary is going to get through. And some others are going to get through. The question is, some of the more radical ones, RFK Jr., this guy, Pete Hegseth, and Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel, are they going to get through? I'm not so sure about that yet. We'll continue to follow it. I'm glad you're here on Popok Live. Good news, we're making this into a full podcast. I'm working on, just to clue you in right here, I got a photo shoot tomorrow to take a photo for the album cover for Popok Live so that we can have it as a full-blown podcast. You'll get it on an audio feed along with these video feeds. And it's all because of you, because we started doing it right after the election. And now we're about 10 episodes strong. And this community has told Midas Touch, Michael Popok, keep doing it. We're here for you. We're loving it. We need you. And I believe me, I read all the comments and commentary that comes my way. And it makes me a better content provider, better lawyer, better person because of the things that you talk to me about. And I appreciate that. So until my next Legal AF, which is going to be tomorrow midweek and Saturday with Ben Mycelis, the OG podcast, and of course, everything we're doing on Legal AF, the YouTube channel, Legal AF MTN from Midas Touch Network. We really need your help. We're trying to get to 500,000. We're getting there. I think we're going to get there by the end of next month with your help. Hit the blue subscribe button. Come over. Help us grow for free this pro-democracy channel called Legal AF, the YouTube channel. And thank you to our pro-democracy sponsors on this show. We'll see you on All Things Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.